interesting place. Who's the architect, Edgar Allan Poe?
You don't have to come.
Oh, and leave you alone in there with Dr. Weird?
Okay, so he's a little eccentric, but he asked for me specially, remember?
Gee, I wonder why. Hey!
Another one for my collection. Rick Taylor, the man behind the mask. That's the story I want to get. Maybe one day I'll get one where you look like you're having fun.
Horror-themed video games are some of my favorites. Games like Resident Evil, Silent Hill, and Eternal Darkness have been scaring gamers half to death for quite some time. Perhaps some of those games owe their origins to Namco's 1988 side-scrolling beat-em-up Splatterhouse. With its dark atmosphere and haunting music, the arcade classic certainly left an impression on all who played it. It may be funny when you look at the original now, but the game was actually quite controversial back in the 80s. A warning was even placed on the TurboGrafx 16 version's box. Splatterhouse 2 would hit the Sega Genesis in 1992, and a year later Splatterhouse 3 would be what many thought was the series' final outing. Splatterhouse was assumed dead and buried, a fond memory of the 16-bit era. But in video gaming, never say never. 3 console generations had passed since the series was released, and yet in 2010, it was announced that a Splatterhouse reboot was in fact being made. So does the reboot live up to the classic Splatterhouse name, or should you keep your fond memories of the original? Graphically, Splatterhouse is an average-looking game. It does a good job of capturing the dark atmosphere, and its art style is unique. It reminds me of Brutal Legend with its cel-shaded look. You'd think that the game would run silky smooth, but that's not the case. There's tons of slowdown and frame rate issues, especially in the early parts of the game. If tons of blood are your thing, Splatterhouse delivers, with gallons of what looks more like spaghetti sauce than the real thing. I don't mind this, being a fan of a lot of old horror films where the blood looks less than convincing, but it can certainly be laughable at times, and something that perhaps only adolescent teens, or those of us with that mindset, can fully appreciate.
I said good day, son!
The story is somewhat similar to the original. Instead of playing a bald dude wearing a Friday the 13th mask, you play as nerdy band-worshipping would-be-cool college kid Rick Taylor. The evil college professor, Dr. West, kidnaps his beloved girlfriend Jennifer and leaves Rick for dead. But in a twist of fate, a mysterious talking mask offers to save Rick and help him get his gal back. This transforms the skinny kid into a ridiculous, hulking, roided-up comic book-looking monster, complete with jean shorts and no shirt.
Kinda made sense for me to
I understand. You wanted to protect your girlfriend in case anything happened to her. Very noble of you. And also, completely futile. Fanglui, magla, puluvagen.
I'm sorry.
To be honest, the game's plot is actually far better than I thought it was going to be, and the banter back and forth between the Mask and Rick is very entertaining. The Mask is voiced by Jim Cummings, who really does an exceptional job of bringing a lot of life into the game's attempt at a narrative.
About you.
You set me free, I owe you. That's all you need to know.
No, somehow I don't believe you.
And somehow I don't care.
The music is a nice blend of remixes from the original Splatterhouse and heavy metal rock. The biggest problem with Splatterhouse is the gameplay. Beat-em-up action titles advanced years ago with Devil May Cry, God of War, Ninja Gaiden, and most recently, Bayonetta. This game feels like it's stuck somewhere between Nightmare Creatures and Fighting Force, neither of which were good games. Early on, you'll hit the X and Y buttons a lot, and use the occasional throw on your foes. You also have these fatality-like moves where an enemy is damaged enough that will activate a quick-time event. When buttons are pressed correctly, limbs will be severed and colons will be ripped out in places that shall not be named. Some of these moves are really cool and will elicit the "oh" reaction, but the novelty quickly wears off when you realize that there is little in the way of variety here, and you'll soon see the same animations over and over again. When you're in trouble, and if you filled up your blood gauge enough, you can execute a super move, transforming Rick into an even more monstrous form for a few moments.
And I help you get your girl back.
What the fuck is going on?
It is good to finally be free. Come on, let's go kill something. It's been too long, and I'm way out of practice. Never forget your first kill. Oops. Too much for you, Rico? Shit. You humans are so fragile. See, you're still weak. We have to take it slower. Build your strength.
Initially, I hated the gameplay in Splatterhouse, but there is at least some added variety as you level up your abilities. Another issue with the game is the insane load times. Even when you have it loaded onto your hard drive, you'll be waiting 10 to 15 seconds after you die, oftentimes only to be placed further back in a level than you should be. This could have easily been corrected by putting checkpoints more often, or at least in more precise locations. Paying homage to the original Splatterhouse, there are certain points of the game that have 2D platforming. Sometimes this can be a lot of fun, but other times the clunky controls will have you swearing due to cheap deaths. With all the gameplay issues, it all adds up to being incredibly annoying. It's not unplayable, but it's downright frustrating at times. At least you can play Splatterhouse 1, 2, and 3, though those games don't really hold up so well. If I had to describe Splatterhouse with one word, it would be lackluster. It's a game that a select group of people may like. The horror movie fan in me wanted to love Splatterhouse, but the game simply has so many glaring problems that the gamer in me made it all impossible to overlook. If you're a fan of blood, gore, dismemberment, and extreme violence in general, Splatterhouse may give you some enjoyment, but at 8 to 10 hours long, the game experience won't last long. If you're looking for a good action game, pick up Bayonetta instead, and avoid this one.
Jesus, Rick, get it together. I asked you to trust me. First sight of blood, and you're crying like a schoolgirl. For a dick, you are such a pussy.